Yes, we can.
Okay, let me just do it. I'm going to back up here just one slide real fast. I'm just going to kind of restart this a little bit. Again, apologize for that inconvenience. So what I was sharing before, again, is that you want to focus more on the conversion side. And that's really going to be the key thing here about focusing on driving quality traffic versus quantity. So on this slide here, hopefully you all can see this now, is that people are searching in very different ways. And what the recommendation here would be is that you want to focus on the people that are various different parts of their buying cycle. And so what happens basically here is that I might search on the word rodeo and be seeing a lot more competition out there. And I'm really much more up in the higher end of the buyer cycle. And so with that, basically people can want to filter down their search and maybe add on additional phrases like rodeo events, or maybe even get more descriptive around things like rodeo family friendly in Phoenix, Arizona. And the reason why this slide is so important is because you want to think about the actual consumer and what their buyer's journey is. And each time they're searching, they have a different intention of what they're looking for. So the person that's searching more of the what they call a longer tail phrase, which is more of a descriptive phrase, those are a higher probability of conversion. And I'm not trying to say that you should only focus on those kind of words, but definitely you want to, when you're starting out in SEO, try to focus on the phrases that are really going to get you the right kind of people to your website to help you with conversion. So now with that, the one area that I really want to touch on very high level, because it is still seeming to cause confusion, especially when it comes to your consumers, is the whole paid versus organic story. And again, I'm focusing today on more of the non-paid organic side. But just to be clear about that, the top area there in red is the paid side, and the bottom part there is the organic side. I'm going to kind of explain this in a little more detail in an analogy that I find works really well for my clients that are newer to this space. So the left side there on the paid is more like fireworks. You light it up, it's really beautiful, but the minute they go out, they go out. And that's the exact same way paid works, is that when you turn off the bidding on those campaigns, your ads stop displaying and you stop generating traffic to your website. Where the right side there is more like building a fire at a campsite. And you're basically building the fire, one piece of wood at a time to raise the level that you want. And that's really how organic works. It's more of a long-term play. So because of that, a lot of companies get frustrated by it because you really have less control when it comes to the natural search side. And so then why even do it? Well, again, like I mentioned before, I'm pretty passionate about this space. You want to think about the long-term ROI. End of the day, you don't want to be having to spend money over and over again ongoing for the paid side. You want to start earning the traffic to your website. So on this slide here, I just point out a couple of the positive versus negatives. On the SEO side, again, it takes longer. There is no guarantees. It all comes down to Google and Yahoo and Bing's algorithm, and they can determine if they want to have your site showing up for rankings or not. Where on the right side there, more of the positive side, is that it definitely comes across a little more credible. Consumers that are a little more savvy in this space understand that you've organically earned that spot. You didn't pay for it. So those people definitely appreciate the more of the organic nature of it. You will have a much higher click-through rate, which basically is the person clicking on your organic listing and coming into your website. Obviously, it's got a longer term shelf life, and over time, it's definitely building up the traffic and quality, traffic and conversion to your site. And then again, higher long-term ROI. The challenge is, of course, it sounds great, and the reason why people get frustrated by this is that it's rapidly changing. I guess thanks to Google, it keeps me in business, but unfortunately, it is frustrating for me and a lot of my clients where they go and make some changes to their sites, and day one, they have a good ranking, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, their ranking is gone. And the main reason why that often is happening is tied to how the search engines are constantly changing their rules. So for example, Google alone changes their algorithm over 500 times every single year. Now, a lot of those changes are minor. It's more about usability. But again, you want to be thinking about that. And I have the formula essentially going to be presented here at the end of this presentation to really kind of take this very technical topic and put it more into layman's terms. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. So let me kind of jump right into the myths about the areas that I feel when I speak to various different organizations in your industry around ticketing or events that often are very confusing. So the first and foremost is about local search. Now, again, for those that are online searching for various different local events, restaurants, whatever it might be, you might find that Google is doing a much better job over the past few years on trying to display to consumers a local result. And they found that it really is important that they provide the best experience possible for people when they assume you're looking for a local business to consider. And so that myth definitely is busted because you can see here some high level stats, which I find personally to be quite impressive, where 59% of consumers use Google to find local businesses every month. 50% of all people that are on mobile are looking for local results, which probably isn't as surprising. And then 61% of local searches result in a purchase. So definitely people that are on the go, that are on their phone, doing searching on Google and whatnot, are definitely people that are looking for to make a decision or a purchase. And so it's really important when you think about this that you are being found and optimized well when it comes to local search. Now, this is one of the areas that a lot of my local clients really get a little confused by, because when you come to Google and you do a search, there's so many different aspects of how you can gain real estate. There's the local maps, there's the paid side I mentioned a few minutes ago, there is the organic side, there's all the various different shopping feeds and reviews and so on and so forth. But when it comes to local, these are really the three key areas to help you gain results when it comes to local search. So first and foremost, I'm actually going to give you a really great tool that our company uses for our clients that actually is free and very easy to use. But local directories, or what they call citations, these are the sites where you locate or list out your name, your address, your phone number. It's one of the key aspects of how Google and the various search engines know you are a local business. So it's really important that, especially with the directories and sites that your customers or patrons may visit, that you are located on there and the data is correct and is pointing to your website. That's the first thing. The second part is reviews. Many of you may have noticed that when you're doing searches now on Google, they often will start displaying the little stars. It used to be just any kind of review was good enough, but obviously now their algorithm has been adjusted where they want to have it be more of a positive sentiment versus obviously negative. But again, what you want to do there is encourage reviews. So as consumers are coming through your events, your venues, whatever it may be, and they had a really good experience, try to encourage them to go to sites like Yelp or Google and sharing their perspective on that. The more reviews you get of a higher quality review, the better it's going to help you get found for local results. And then last but not least, and this is a constant evolution when it comes to Google, mainly due to how technology is changing, but they're trying really hard to have the local get even more local. And the concept around that might be is how far are you as a consumer from the actual location? For example, if you're 3 miles from the rodeo and I'm searching on family friendly rodeo, Google is going to try to display the rodeo that's 3 miles from me versus the one that's 5 miles from me. Now again, keep that in mind. It all comes down to the quality of that website. A site that's performing better than a lower performing site may show up higher in the results. So just keep that in mind when you're doing results around that. But these recommendations I'm providing you today are more kind of like general best practices. If you can do a really good job with a couple of these key takeaways, it definitely will help you start improving your results. So with that, like I mentioned earlier, I really wanted to leave you all with a couple easy to use, actionable recommendations. And this is probably one of my search team's favorite tools. If you haven't heard of Moz.com, we definitely recommend you check them out. The site can get a little technical sometimes. It's got a lot more people in my industry on the site, but you can learn a lot about SEO on this website. And Moz is constantly coming out with really great tools. And one of the tools I'm talking about now is local listings. I'm just going to kind of really fast walk you through how this would work. So on this page, and by the way, on the bottom right here has a link, moz.com/local. The Ticket Force team will actually are recording this presentation today, and they will be sending this out. So if you don't have a pen handy, you don't have to feel like you have to write down every single tip here. You will have access to this presentation at a later date, starting with probably tomorrow. But basically, you would go to this website and pop in your business address and your zip code. It then will display all of the key locations it finds for your company. As you can see here, StringCan Interactive is my agency. If you click on that listing, that's in our case, we verified our listing. But when you go there, Moz now actually will show you a score. And the goal is to try to get at least a 60% or higher score. So don't be discouraged if you get to this site and you do a search and you find that you're a 20 or 30%. Just to be very frank with you all, when I first found this tool and I did our search, our score was closer about a 65% score, which obviously this is what we do for a living, so we're a little discouraged by that. But again, we're not focused on local, so it wasn't our main goal, but I would imagine for a lot of you, local is going to be very important. So we definitely would recommend you use this tool, and it'll save you a lot of time and money. Okay, so on to myth number 2. This is one of a very common concern we get from our clients that maybe are a little behind the times when it comes to search. You know, they're seeing some of their competitors that are much larger, or maybe have an internal marketing team that has expertise in this space, or maybe for years have been doing it. And what I want to share with you is that we've had so many clients come to us that they feel like they're so far behind, and we find that there are some really smart things that you could do to catch up. So don't not do this because you feel like you're too far behind. So again, I want to give you kind of 2 tips around this area to really help you focus on what makes the most sense for your business. So first and foremost, I have this little funny image here for the audience side. So first is the idea about focusing on who your audience is. If you recall, when I talked a little bit earlier about the idea on the whole long tail search with descriptive based phrases, you want to really understand your exact audience and their needs. And you don't want to focus on just traffic. You want to focus on quality traffic. So the concept behind that would be is talk with your customers, find out what their pain points are, figure out what kind of keyword phrases they're searching on. And as you're building out content for your website, you want to focus on those things first. And more often than not, that alone really will help you start catching up. A second part, which I'm going to mention later on in the formula here, is that the architecture of your site. You'd be amazed at how many times we start working with clients, and actually their problem really isn't the content of their site. It's more about how their website is built. The challenge again here would be is that if you don't have on your team a technical resource understanding how architecture of a site should be built, then it may come across a little frustrating. So I wanted to also give you a tip here where basically you can go onto a tool. And by the way, if you start Googling things like website obstacles for SEO, you're going to find dozens of really good tools out there. But again, trying to be offering value to you all, here's one of my team's favorite tools that is very easy to use, quite easy to understand, and also has no cost to it. On the free version, you can get a lot of data that you need to understand what obstacles you may have in place on your website. So basically here, what you would do is you go to Nibbler, the URL's on the bottom right, nibbler.silktide.com. You would put in the website address for your company, and then this tool will present back to you your score. And again, like I mentioned before with the local listings, you may have a score of a 2 or a 3, a very low score. making some of these modifications and enhancements to your site will really help improve your score. And the reason why this is so important is Google is trying to provide a really good user experience to your customers. And if they see their visitors going to your site and they're leaving the site very quickly, maybe because your site has some problems, things like the load time of your site. The page load speed is one of the really important aspects of your site. And you may not be aware of this issue and or why you have this issue. And so tools like this will help you understand exactly what problems you have and then how to fix them. Okay, number 3 is, okay, Jay, you mentioned content now a couple times. I'm going to probably mention it again here for the next 5 or 10 minutes more often than not, about being a professional writer. And what I want to say is you don't have to be a professional writer when it comes to SEO. You just need to make sure that you're producing content that is quality, but is speaking to your audience. So with that, I want to give you a couple tips around the content side. You obviously, or I'm sure many of you have heard, the content is king. This is a very common phrase mentioned often when it comes to online marketing. It's very important and still very important. So I mentioned before about the audience side, starting out with your audience and talking to your customers, understanding what their pain points are. That alone will generate some really good ideas. And then you tailor in your passion around your venue or your event or whatever it is you're trying to offer the consumer. You want to educate them through various different tips and tricks. So it might be about, if you have an outside event, weather, proper things to bring with them, maybe your policies around can they bring in food or drinks or not, rain policies, like all these various different things to help them understand things. When they're Googling stuff, they're finding your website and it's explaining things. You also, if you have a more of a cause-based or a really exciting or interesting story about your venue or your company, go ahead and share that story. People really love to hear the history of how businesses and events and venues were born and the history around them. When it comes to the SEO side, be careful on the promotion aspect of it. Google's algorithm definitely can tell when content is being written in a way trying to sell people. So you can save more promotional content for the paid media side. That's very appropriate there. Just be a little careful when it comes to content. People are searching on Google and trying to discover different things and different events to consider. They're looking more for information and research versus being hard sold. If you have any partners or causes in place, definitely leverage that. And then again, I mentioned before about the not needing to be a professional writer. I know, for example, myself, I am far from that, but I usually have some really good ideas that I want to share with our clients and various people that I'm trying to engage with. So what I often do is I will write out an outline based upon a topic I want to focus on. I'll create a draft version that'll get us probably 60% there, and then I'll ask a team member or two on my staff to read it through and tell me how they felt about it. Did the content make sense? Was the flow appropriate? Was there enough or not enough information? You'd be amazed at how that kind of fresh pair of eyes view on your content will offer you a significant amount of help to become a better writer. And then the last myth that I want to share, and this has been one that's been a huge thorn in my side. Often I will have clients send us emails from these various different SEO firms about guaranteeing them rankings, and for $25 you could get 1,000 more links to your site. And those kind of very spammy tactics worked very well 5 years and plus ago. So Google has definitely gotten very smart at this. They can tell if links are earned based upon organically and or you paid for them. So what I want to share is that the quantity of links does not get you the results. It's the quality of your links. So this is an area, again, that's a little complex. I wanted to give you a couple tips on what you can do around how to get more links to your site, because links are still a very significant portion of the search formula. And the reason why the links are so important is that Google's crawlers are basically computers are crawling the internet and they're looking for various different websites and pages of sites to include in their database. And so they leverage these links to basically be a signal to tell their crawlers, hey, here's a site that we think is worthy for you to go to. So it might be an event blog talking about your event, or it might be a local media or news publication, again, talking about your event, your venue, or whatnot. And those typically will link to your website. And those are the links that are very valuable to you. So what you kind of want to do is make sure that you avoid just trying to get any links out there. You want to get higher quality links. And so do not, I guess, try not to ever pay for a link. Sometimes it might be part of your strategy to consider that. Maybe it's a promotional website that it focuses on a certain aspect of your audience. And they might say, to be featured on our, top 10 venues of our city, it costs X dollars to be featured. That might be worth for you to consider. What I'm talking about here is don't pay a website to add a link to their directory, and then basically that link then points back to your site. Either it's going to be ignored by Google, and or I've seen with numerous clients, those paid links actually can backfire and hurt you and damage your website's quality score. So you want to kind of avoid that. So when it comes to the links, quality is more important than quantity. And the way you can go out there and try to gain links is start talking to your partners. Are there complementary partners out there? For example, driving services or restaurants or whatever it might be, people or other local businesses near you that would complement your venue or event. Try to ask them to talk about your event and link to you. Maybe you have attendees that maybe have blogs. You can ask them to write a blog and write a review about you. So again, this is not rocket science. You just want to be logical about this. Try to think about the people out there that have influence that could share information about your venue and then ask them to link back to your website. So to kind of wrap it up here, I wanted to leave you with a formula that I'm hoping will be pretty easy to comprehend. And again, the Google's formula, I mean, no one knows it, exact formula per se, but in the 16 or so years I've been doing this, what I found year over year, these are the three elements that really impact a website from being found or not. So again, the architecture, it's the technical aspects of your website, how fast your site loads. Do you have a good navigation flow? You may have heard a thing called a sitemap. It's basically this visual I have showing on this slide here. You want to make it very easy for the search engines to visit and crawl your website. So you want to remove any obstacles you have in place before you invest any time or money trying to optimize your site to get found. The second part there is content. If you look at some of your competitor sites that may have better rankings than you, more often than not, the quality of their content talking to the audience will often be one of the main aspects why they are showing up very well. And then the third part there is the links. You want to get quality links coming to your site. And again, if you use that tool Moz.com that I mentioned before, Moz actually has this really cool toolbar that you can add. And based upon that, it'll tell you, what the score is of your website, as well as how many links you have. And where that's really valuable is you also can look at your competitor sites. So if you are searching online as your audience and finding that your site is not showing up well, but a lot of your competitors are, if you start looking at their website and determining, what kind of links they have on their site, it'll help you understand better why they're performing better than you are. But also a really great thing you can do there is on the competition side is by using that tool, it'll tell you exactly what links are pointing from what website to your competitor websites. And so what you can do then is you can strategically contact those various different companies and try to encourage them to also do a review and or link to your site. And that way you can start trying to catch up to the competition. So with that, I'm going to wrap up here. Again, I mentioned before, I wanted to leave you all a connection points for myself I'm very active on Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, please feel free to connect with me. I'm very, very passionate about this space, and I'd love to just guide you all to head down this road the right way. And with that, I'm going to open up to any Q&A you all have.
I actually have a question. This is Whitney from Ticket Force, by the way. Hello, everyone. When you talk about quality content in on the website and in blogs, will Google's algorithm pick up those keywords automatically, or do we need to be creating tags or doing something internally to make sure that those keywords are being picked up by Google?
So great question. So the whole element around keywords is definitely one that could have been another, half an hour presentation itself. The keyword itself, what they called or what's called a meta keyword, it's the code you put behind a page to tell Google what you want that page to be found for. And again, what ended up happening was a lot of SEO firms abused that. So what they did was many years ago is people would go into the page and add in, 10, 20, 30 keywords, basically spam and stuff that page with the keyword. And so unfortunately, because of that, Google and a couple of other of the engines actually now essentially ignore that meta keyword tag. That being said, it's still very important. And the reason why it's important is you want to have a purpose. For every single page, you want to think about it as a door into your venue or the entry gate into your event. And you want to have that keyword thought about of what are you trying to get this page found for. And so even though the meta keyword is not really leveraged anymore by the search engines, you want to have that keyword theme sprinkled throughout appropriately on the page. So they have two other meta aspects of the code. Is called a meta description, which basically is what Google will use when you're doing a search on Google and you see those two lines of text underneath your company name. That's the meta description. And so you want to have your meta description include the main keyword theme for your page, as well as the page name. And then throughout your copy, by being appropriate though, you want to have that keyword sprinkled throughout as well. So again, what you don't want to do is make it sound very robotic and awkward. Google definitely can tell when you're doing that. So back to my example before, where the keyword phrase might be rodeo family friendly in Scottsdale, Arizona. What SEO firms used to do in the past is they would take that exact keyword phrase and write it 5 to 10 times. And as you probably can imagine from a user's perspective, that sounds extremely awkward. So what you basically want to do there is that you want to make sure that the keyword is written in a way in the copy that a human person reading it will find that to be legible and grammar appropriate and whatnot. But don't just try to put the keyword in there just to put it in. Try to make sure that it's weaved into the copy appropriately.
Um, Jay Phillips is asking if you mentioned a mass toolbar a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so that was the Moz, M-O-Z toolbar.
Oh, M-O-Z. Okay.
So with
And
that,
is that something you need to download, or how do
yeah,
people access that?
yeah, basically, so if you just Google Moz, M-O-Z, search toolbar, typically, I believe it's designed for the Chrome browser. And again, there are a lot of these out there. So if you just Google, search toolbar or search analysis toolbar, you'll find them out there. And the main benefit of those toolbars is as you are navigating through and visiting various different websites, the toolbar will display to you how the website is being scored, following some of the best practices around Google. So it just will speed up a lot of your effort, understanding what sites are performing better or not, and to leverage that to really help you improve your website.
Great. And since we're on the Moz subject, Debbie had a question. She wrote that she just did the Moz local for the Duluth Center where she works, and they come up twice. One has an 82% potential 95%, and one has a 73% with potential 88%. And she wants to know if multiple listings hurt or help.
Okay, this is actually I'm gonna say controversial per se, but it's definitely a frustration of it. So keep in mind, that tool is a free tool from Moz, and so it doesn't have the level of support I believe it needs. But if you actually use that tool and look up my company, I think we actually now have 7 different listings. And so the intention of that is Moz, as they're scanning the internet, they're finding potentially different aspects of your citation, again, name, address, and phone. So it's possible that one directory might have your venue with literally one character difference, or possibly the phone number is different. And so when that happens, they start displaying the various different listings they're finding. So if you are doing that search and you are finding any listings that are inaccurate, obviously you want to focus on first fixing those. For example, I had a client that had over 25 listings showing up on that page, and unfortunately what happened was they changed their phone number and they never fixed all of the directories out there. So luckily, because of this tool, we found all those problems to fix it. And I think you all can imagine how frustrating that be for a consumer. So if you are seeing more than one listing showing up, it basically means that Moz is seeing different address information out there for you. You want to go ahead and clean that up. And then once you clean it up and then basically have your primary verified listing, you then would want to focus on that verified listing to go through and increase your score. And then to answer your question then about the quantity, what you basically want to do is you want to have your information on the right directories that the various search engines find of value. So that tool will help you show you where your score is at today and what you can do to start fixing your score. And that's why I find that tool to be such a huge value. Before that tool, my team, we have clients with hundreds, if not thousands of locations. And so if you can imagine, before we had this tool, I mean, there's thousands of directories out there. Going through each one and verifying each address and each location is just a very ineffective process and very costly for us and our client. So these kind of tools will really help you on figuring out exactly where you're at today and what you need to do to get a higher score.
Great. Couple more questions here. Someone's asking about mobile-friendly sites getting higher billing on Google's new algorithm. How does that play into SEO?
So that one definitely is important, especially when it comes to mobile search. So Google's algorithm now is trying to decipher a mobile search or not. Many of you may have noticed when you do a search on Google, you may see the word mobile optimized or mobile friendly showing up next to your result. And more often than not, those listings that are mobile friendly or mobile optimized from the search engine's perspective are the ones that are going to get better rankings over those that are not. And the reason why, again, I mentioned a couple times about the load time of your sites. If your site right now is not what they call responsive, where your site responds or changes or adapts based upon the user's device, either desktop, tablet, or smartphone, a desktop website that might have a very large image on it or various different features or functionality that take a lot of time to load, if you're on a dedicated internet connection, those load up pretty quickly. You may not notice that it's very slow. But when you pull it up on your mobile phone with maybe a low signal on your phone, you'll notice that how slow your website may load. And what happens is, as a consumer, if I do a search and click on a result and that page takes 5, 10 plus seconds to load, I'm going to just go back and go to the next website because I don't have loyalty yet to that company. And so the mobile side is extremely important. Now, again, if you go to moz.com and various different sites and read up about this, there's a lot of debate around that. But end of the day, it's been proven over and over again that Google is definitely heading a lot more to the mobile space, and they're watching this area closely. And if you don't have a mobile-friendly website today, and if organic traffic is important to you, and I would I guess, challenge anyone that tells me that that is not important. You really need to put a solid mobile strategy space, especially in the industry you're in. I would say more often than not, your customers are very mobile active, and you need to make sure that your site is performing well on the mobile side.
Great. And I see another question on here. Does keeping your content fresh and frequently updated on your website help your SEO? For example, if you spend a lot of time and energy getting your copy for your website to reflect good on your SEO capabilities, do you need to update that, or?
Okay, so let me, I guess, separate that into two parts. There is what I'll call your main website, and then potentially if you have a blog. As many of you may have heard, a blog is one of the key elements that are helping websites getting found more often than not. And the main reason why for that is blogs in their natural form are designed to be very timely and relevant. So your team or yourself are producing content around themes that your audience is looking for. And so often Google will crawl those kind of pages more often than not. So on the timely, relevant, fresh side, you want to leverage a section of your site, ideally a blog, to be producing that kind of content. Now, when it comes to your main website, I do want to caution you to be a little careful here. Don't just go on your pages to change them just to change them to try to, trick the engines to keep on coming back to your site. Once a page on your main site, like maybe like your about page or your services page or your event calendar page or whatnot, has been indexed and included in Google's database, they will crawl your site looking for changes, but they're looking for kind of new posts or pages. And so what I would recommend to consider doing is another really great tool. If you don't already have it installed on your site is Google Analytics. It can be a little confusing, so that's why I did not include it in the presentation today. But with Google Analytics, if you have it installed, you can look on a per page basis how the performance of an individual page is. So you can see, okay, well, maybe in July, one page had 200 organic visits to your page, but then all of a sudden in August you had 5 visits. If you don't have seasonality in your business and you're more of like an ongoing venue, you might want to then consider on that page possibly making some adjustments. And that's where it might require some more technical support from a company like ours to understand exactly why that page is not performing as well as it is. But my high level advice there would be is, again, obviously this is unique on a case by case basis, but try to avoid just making changes to a page if you don't have data justifying why that change needs to be made.
Great. I don't think I see any more. Oh, nope, I've got a couple more questions. Any suggestions for pushing an incorrect site down in the search listings? For example, maybe a reseller site that you don't want your patrons buying from appearing right below your actual ticketing site?
Okay, this is a fun one. Great question. I've asked that question. So when it comes down to it, unless you own that company, you have no control over that. So what my, again, kind of best practice of advice would be is worry less about trying to push them down and worry more about you producing new content to get you pushed up. And that's really what the challenge might be, is that I've had clients literally do a lot of like scammy type of things before they hired us, where they might like try to get like bad links pointing to a website to post them down, or list a website as spam. All that activity is just going to be a waste of your time and energy. And so all you can do is try to get your site to get found better. When it comes to things like reseller sites, if they're already showing up well for your phrase, unless you have authority or legal rights to ask them to remove that kind of content, until Google deems their site of less value than your site and or your pages, is not going to happen. But I mentioned earlier on about the thing around real estate. So again, if you do a search for a phrase, a single website can show up on the page more often than not. So you can have a listing on the local map part. You can have a video show up. You can have photos show up. Google is even testing now things like concert tickets, where they're actually going to display right there in their results various different tickets and events and times and whatnot. There's obviously the organic side and the paid side. So if you don't have the ability to push down a reseller or a site that you don't want to be showing up for a really strategic phrase, what my advice would be is high level, try to get at least one solid listing in all those key aspects. And that way then, as a consumer, when I come to Google or Yahoo or Bing and I do a search, psychologically, if I see the same company showing up over and over again, it's going to raise my credibility flag. And basically, I will find myself clicking through to one of those things more often than some other reseller site. In addition, from our experience, we have found that consumers typically prefer to buy from the actual source. There's been so many issues online when it comes to fraud, where maybe someone might buy a ticket from somebody and they never received the ticket, and all of a sudden now the venue obviously can't support that, and it caused a lot of consumer issues. Because of some of those problems, people now are more often looking for an official website where to make a purchase.
Great, that's really great information. And I see another question on here, kind of following up on the quality content you were talking about, and that's, would you recommend creating a blog or a news feed on a venue website just for SEO purposes, or maybe not just, but to boost SEO?
So here's what my advice would be on that. And I'm probably going to get killed by my team for saying this, but this all is so time consuming, and I wouldn't do it just to do it. So there's nothing worse, at least in my opinion, of going to a site or a social media profile and seeing that they have an account and it's like a graveyard. There's nothing going on. I don't enjoy going to blogs when I see they have, the last blog post was from December of 2013. So I'm all about strategy. And my advice would be is before you launch anything new, a blog, a social media, a paid media campaign, take some time, either yourself or with your team members if you have them, and think about the strategy side. Focus first on your audience. I'd recommend producing a very high level content editorial calendar. Try to do it for at least 3 or 6 months. And that way, then that's probably the hardest part when it comes to content, because what often happens is you'll spend all this time and money to post or create a blog for your website, and then it's live, and you're like, now what do I do? And it's so frustrating trying to, like, 11th hour trying to produce content when you feel obligated to do it. Instead, you should be producing it based upon your audience. So if you go ahead and can produce a calendar of, maybe the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 blog posts you'd want to write, then if you if you feel your audience will be searching for this, and I'm pretty confident they would be, then it does make sense to do it. And you will find, from a search engine perspective, having a blog, keeping it fresh, I would say, ideally, 2 or 3 blog posts a month would probably be kind of a good rule of thumb to start out with. No less than 1 per month. And then from there, basically watching how that's improving, driving traffic to your site. But again, you're looking for quality traffic, not just random traffic to your site. So if you keep it up to date and you're being consistent about it and focusing on the audience, you will see that it will definitely boost your SEO traffic.
Great, that's a great answer as well. Not seeing any questions. I think maybe we got everything covered, unless anyone has a last minute question they want to type in. Looks like we're okay, Jay.
All right, great. Well, everyone, thank you. That was a wonderful time. I really appreciate your guys' time today. I'm going to go ahead and be available if you have any questions. Again, like I mentioned before, just send me a message via, Twitter or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to do any follow-ups if you guys need it. But otherwise, I wish you all the best and look forward to hearing how this works out for you.
Thank you, Jay. And for anyone that's still on the line, just a reminder that our next webinar is going to be on September 24th, and it's going to be about using social media to let your audience know about your upcoming events, and we'll be sending updates out about that. Other than that, thank you and have a lovely day, everyone.